From spooky legends past, down through generations, to haunted locations that hold a ghostly past. Come one, come all, come finders and seekers. Hear the creepy side of NEPA.
Hello and welcome to the Creepy Side of NEPA. I am Dan Kosloski. If you are new to the Creepy Side of NEPA, or maybe you just didn't get a chance to, please like, subscribe, or follow the Creepy Side of NEPA on whichever podcast platform that you're listening to us on. Also, follow WNEP's Creepy Side of NEPA on Facebook. That is the best way to get the latest show information. Joining us tonight is Bryan and Tanya Gilroy from Empty Casket Paranormal. They have been on the show about 2 years ago, talking about some of their favorite investigations. Since then, they have a new project, the Talking Board Museum, which is a traveling Ouija board museum. Bill and Tanya, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having us.
I know we had you guys on the show, probably about 2 or 3 years ago now, but you guys have a different project you have been working on since.
Yeah, we do. We spent the last about a year now getting this Talking Board Museum up and running.
So what exactly is the Talking Board Museum?
So for the time being, it is a traveling museum of Ouija boards. It gives the history of how the Ouija boards came to be, both the spiritualism era that created it, and then the history of the board itself, and then goes through showcasing our collection of Ouija boards, which is very rapidly approaching 60 boards.
I know I've seen it at the beginning of February at the Scranton Cultural Center, and I was kind of amazed at the amount of Ouija boards there are.
Yeah, I didn't even have all my boards there.
We didn't have half. Well, we had majority.
We had about 40 of them there at that show.
Okay. Yeah, that was, like I said, I didn't know they had that many boards.
Oh, and there's so many more that I don't have yet.
So when you say traveling museum, where exactly do you guys set up mostly?
So the Scranton Cultural Center was our first show. We are right here in northeastern PA. I live in Tunkhannock.
I live in Plymouth.
And so we're booking up some locations around Pennsylvania that we're going to be going to. The next one that we have scheduled is, I believe it's March 2nd. We'll be in Milton, Pennsylvania at a Moss. But then we have some other places in Northeast PA that we're in talks with bringing the museum. We'll be in Gettysburg a couple times, and a few places in New York that we're still trying to nail down dates.
It's very interesting. What sort of got you guys started with the whole Ouija board, talking board museum idea?
Well, it's funny. I used to be very against Ouija boards. Never wanted to have one in the house, never wanted to play with one. But it was after Tanya and I started dating that, we went to Salem, went to the Witchboard Museum that they have up there. We had been getting more into the ghost hunting and all the paranormal stuff. And I bought my first Ouija board there, which very quickly turned into an obsession. I think by the end of that weekend, I had 4.
Yeah, you gathered them a lot.
Yeah, that's 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So yeah, the obsession grew very quickly. And my fear of it, it went away very quickly. And I started studying the boards and their history and became very okay with using them. And over the last year, as we do different paranormal events, Ouija boards always get brought up. Most people don't want to touch them. They have a thought process around the Ouija boards that just is not based in reality. It's based off of, fear and a lot of different stories that came out of the satanic panic of the 80s and the 90s. And so we were always trying to re-educate people based on the research that we've done. And then that coupled with our very rapidly growing collection, doing a museum just seemed like the next logical step.
As I know, a lot of people, even the guests that were on the show in the past, have been saying, stay away from Ouija boards.
Yeah, we hear that all the time. And there's really no reason to stay away from them. They're no different than any other ghost hunting tool that we use. But they have a bad stigma about them due to Hollywood and movies and stories on the internet that are just that, stories.
Mm-hmm. So how did the whole Ouija board start?
So the earliest Ouija board that is known, that is documented, is from 1886. There were in Middle Ohio. It was kind of a craze that we don't know who exactly started it, but they started making something pretty similar to what we have today as the Ouija board. It was a board with the letters and numbers on it. It had a good evening, good night, yes, no, and then they had a sort of planchette. It was a little different than the planchette we use today, but that ended up popping up in the New York Tribune, as well as local newspapers around Ohio. And Charles Kennard, who was he owned Kennard Novelty Company in Baltimore, Maryland. He read about it, decided to come up with his own design. We were in the heart of the spiritualism era, and he patented it. His design in 1890 came up with the name Ouija board, or Ouija, which legend has it was given to him by the Ouija board itself. And
that's interesting in itself.
Yeah, it was Charles Kennard, Elijah Bond, and an actress whose name is escaping me. They were using the Ouija board, and they asked for the board to name itself, and they spelt out Ouija. And when they asked what it meant, the board said that it means good luck.
I never knew that before. Yeah, that's very interesting.
Yeah, so the board's been named the Ouija board since 1890. It's gone through a couple different owners, but they've been manufactured since then. And while the main design of the Ouija board has changed a little bit over time, it's been a very slow change. You still have the sun and the moon from the very beginning. Some of the artwork has changed a little bit, but it's mostly been the same.
I know, looking at your museum when I was there, you could tell it mostly is the same, but like a lot of, it looks like almost people have been putting logos on them over time and different graphics throughout the board.
Yep, there was a big resurgence in the 1940s with World War II. A lot of people started getting a lot more spiritual because they were afraid that their loved ones were being killed overseas, and they had no way of knowing what was going on. So a lot of them turned to spiritualism type things, and Ouija board was one of those things. So there was a big resurgence, and a lot more companies started making them, and they would use imagery, from the Far East, India, China, Japan, or the Middle East. You get some Arabian themed ones, some Egyptian themed ones.
And it looked like you had a little bit of everything there at the museum.
Almost.
Almost, yeah. Yeah, we're working on it.
I saw a little bit of like Egyptian graphics all the way up to, I think I even saw an Ozzy Osbourne one.
Yep. Yeah, it's a hard one to get a hold of.
Is that a rare one?
That one's pretty rare. The only way to get that one, during one of his tours, you had to buy the VIP ticket to get it.
Oh,
and
interesting.
Every once in a while, they pop up for sale on eBay, and I was lucky enough to grab one.
So why do you think people are so afraid of the Ouija board?
Well, in the 80s and 90s, you had the Satanic Panic, where pretty much anything that was paranormal or metaphysical was looked on as being evil. And it really didn't start to change until late 90s, early 2000s, when the Ghost Hunters TV show came out and people started getting more interested in the paranormal. And they've been able to, squash a lot of the misconceptions about anything having to do with the paranormal. However, for some reason, the Ouija board just hasn't been able to shake that stigma yet. Maybe because it's such a simple thing and easy for people to get their hands on. Maybe because it's marketed by toy manufacturers, so it's not necessarily taken as seriously.
And that's something that I always found weird. That you could pick up a Ouija board back even when Toys R Us were in business.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, right now it's Hasbro who owns the rights to the Ouija board. Now, I had mentioned Charles Kennard had started it. Well, one of the reasons that he decided to start making them was because he made board games. So he already had the manufacturing facilities to produce the Ouija board. It was just a matter of making a new design for it. So it was easy for him to do that. And that's kind of what started to tie the Ouija board with toys, is just the fact that he had the right manufacturing for it.
Right, yeah, I never really thought about it, but it basically is like a board game.
Pretty much,
especially with the manufacturing part of it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But it's, I mean, really and truly, it's not a game. It's a tool to be used if you're into the metaphysical or the paranormal, and but that's all it is a tool. It in and of itself is not anything evil or bad. It's like anything else. It can be used for that, but it really comes down to the person using it, what their intention is, what they want to get out of it, because that's usually what you get out of it is what you want out of it.
Now, I know I had a few guests on in the past who mentioned by using a Ouija board, you're trying to contact the spirit, but you have no idea if you're contacting a good spirit or a bad spirit.
But that could be said for any type of ghost hunting. We don't know who we're talking to. You never have 100% proof.
True. Yep.
Again, like Gabriel said, it's really all in your intentions and how you're going in on it.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that we tell people, not just for the Ouija board, but just ghost hunting in general, is ghosts can lie just as easily as we can. So you got to take everything you hear with a grain of salt. But I mean, a lot of the Ouija board stories, they all start the same way. You have a bunch of kids who aren't taking it seriously, and they ask if there's anything out there that wants to talk to them. Well, you know, that just opens the door for anything to come through.
Yeah.
If you kind of bound that a little bit and ask specifically for a specific spirit or the spirits of the location that you're at, that kind of tightens that door up a little bit and you know, kind of limits what can come through to talk to you.
And all the stories sort of start the same at a sleepover or something along those lines.
Basically.
Yeah, pretty much.
So how about you guys? Have you guys have any experiences with the Ouija boards from your museum?
So, I mean, we definitely used Ouija boards. We don't always use it with our ghost hunting, mainly because there's a lot of locations that don't want people using Ouija boards. So we respect their wishes on that, but we do use them we have had, you know, things move. I'll be honest, the first time that I ever used one, I did not expect it to actually work. And then when it actually started moving and I knew I wasn't doing it, I was kind of freaked out a little bit.
Yeah, for me, I actually just grew up with them. I've never had a fear. It's actually something that was very common in my house to have one. I was encouraged to use it. So I've never had bad experiences or anything come from it. But I also knew to be responsible, so I wasn't using it as a game. So when I met Bill and he was telling me how his fears are, I'm like, there's really nothing to be afraid of. It's really, you know, no different than anything else that we're doing. I never understood why that stigma was there.
Yeah, one of the things that we tell people is, you know, that they're worried that when they use a Ouija board, they're opening up a door of communication and they don't know what's going to come through, which is a true statement. But if you go to a graveyard to talk to a deceased loved one, you're also opening up a door of communication. The only difference is they can't speak back at that point. The Ouija board allows them to talk back to you. But so does using a voice recorder to capture EVPs or a REM pod that they can go and touch, or dowsing rods or pendulums. It's all the same.
Right. It's just the way that people interpret it, that a Ouija board, like you said, between Hollywood and all that stuff that happened in the past.
Absolutely.
And when I was looking at your display at the Cultured Center, one caught my eye that said it was actually haunted and you had it locked up.
So that was locked up more so to protect it.
Okay.
People from it, because we knew we were going to have, you know, at least 1,000 people come through that day, because that's how many people come through for that event that Wyoming Valley Ghost Tours was putting on. But if I said that it was a haunted board, people were going to want to touch it. And if too many people started touching it, the oils on your skin could start actually deteriorating the boards.
Sure, just so like any antique or collectible out there.
Exactly. But the story behind that board was it was given to me by a guy in upstate New York He found out that I was collecting them and wanted to get rid of this one. Well, he didn't want to get rid of it. His fiance insisted that he gets rid of it. And the story behind it was that him and his friends had used it, and every time they used it, weird things started happening. They'd feel the board shaking, things would fall off the shelves around them, spell out things that nobody should know. A couple times the planchette went flying off the board. And the last time it happened, or the last time it was used, it started falling off the shelves of a bookshelf near them, and then the whole bookshelf knocked over, and they all got freaked out. So they put the Ouija board away and didn't touch it for 3 years until he picked it up to send it to me. Now, I don't know how true any of that story is, but it's an interesting story nonetheless.
Sure. Just like any story really with the paranormal, you can never really prove how true or how false it is. But there's something out there. There's some kind of story. There's some kind of fact behind it backing those stories up.
Oh, absolutely. And I don't know if you noticed while you were at the museum, but the Ouija board on either side of the haunted one, we had a Jesus board on one side and Buffy the Vampire Slayer on the other.
I did notice that. Yep.
Just in case, we want to cover our bases.
And I noticed how your museum started from the beginning. I believe you had a black mirror there?
Yes. So we start the museum with a history of the spiritualism movement. So that includes the Fox sisters and table tipping and scrying, which was the black mirror. And then we want to expand that with spirit trumpets and automatic writing and a few more things. But that's all on our to-do list.
Yeah, it looks like you sort of started right there from the beginning and then you worked your way up to basically today.
Yep. Yeah, we really wanted to kind of
showcase the history.
Yeah. There's a few other, like the museum in Salem, they treat it more like an art museum where they give you information on the individual boards, but it's more to showcase the boards, which is fine.
Mm-hmm.
We want it to be a little bit different and get more into the history.
Plus, we love the history. I mean, it's history that's not well known, but is very significant. I mean, the stuff dates back, hundreds of years, if not more. But things like it, our presidents have used it. Famous people have been linked to it, and it's just a beautiful thing that I personally think should be known to people, and it kind of takes away that fear, if that makes more sense. Like, it takes away that fear that this kind of been around for a long time, and it's part of us in a way.
Sure. Mm-hmm. People are always more afraid of the unknown.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if they know a little bit more of the background or how it started or the history of it, they might not be as afraid anymore.
And a lot of people don't realize how far it goes back. I mean, people think that this is like something brand new, like it happened 20 years ago or, back in the 70s. They don't realize that this is an ongoing thing, that this has been around for a long time, and there's such rich history towards it.
I know. Yeah. I myself knew it was around for a while, but I had no idea it was around as long as it was.
Yeah, I mean, the Ouija board, as far as we can trace it from a documentation standpoint, goes back to 1886. Scrying goes back as far as the Middle Ages or more. I mean, Nostradamus was a scryer. You have Edward Kelly, who was a medieval sorcerer. He was a scryer. And then there's reports of scrying going back, into the BC era. Table tipping got really popular during the spiritualism era, like the Victorian era, and that. But you can trace that back hundreds of years. There's such a rich history, and it goes back to the very roots of humanity. The older civilizations on Earth all had some version of this stuff.
And most recently, I would say within the last 5 to 10 years, I noticed a lot more Ouija board themed items.
Yep.
Everything from carpets to tables to anything like that.
Oh yeah. And our very last exhibit is just that. It's the legacy of the Ouija board and how it has transcended from being a tool to talk to the spirit world to becoming more of an aesthetic. We have a pillow on display, a purse on display. We showcase the movies. We have some jewelry there. We have one of my guitars that has a Ouija board painted on it. And in fact, as we talk to you now, we're sitting at my coffee table, which is a Ouija board.
And it's funny though, because we've had people walk around with Ouija board shirts on, where they're like, "We will not touch a Ouija board." So you have that that weird hypocritical mind. Like, I'll wear it and it's for the aesthetic reasons, but I won't use it.
And I mean, like, basically, it could be used as a Ouija board, a shirt, can't it?
Sure.
Anything like that, I would think, like a carpet, table, anything. Doesn't have to be a board.
Yeah, you can take a piece of paper, write out one, and use that.
Sure.
I keep joking that I'm going to get a Ouija board tattooed on my back so that the spirits can give me a massage.
Well, hope it's nothing worse than a massage.
Yeah.
So if anyone was interested in seeing your museum or one of your upcoming stops, do you have a website on Facebook?
Yeah, so you can find us on Facebook, Empty Casket Paranormal. So we keep posted there all of our upcoming shows, and as we get more shows, we'll be adding those up there. We do have a website. It's ectalkingboardmuseum.com, and the EC stands for Empty Casket. On the site, we give the full history of the Ouija board in more detail than we are able to give in the traveling museum. We also showcase all of our boards up on there. We have a section for myth and superstition, which I'm currently working on, so that should be up and live on the site hopefully in the next week or two. And then we keep all of our shows up there as well. And we just started a forum on there, so if anybody has Ouija board stories or paranormal stories, they're welcome to go on there, create an account, and share them with the rest of us.
Now, as we were talking about the museum here, one question that keeps popping into my mind. You call it the Talking Board Museum. Is that just to get around a copyright with a Ouija board, or is there something different between a talking board or a Ouija board?
So a talking board or a spirit board, those are more the generic terms for it,
okay.
Whereas Ouija is a specific brand. And since we didn't want to tie ourselves to just the brand, we decided to go with the more generic term.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. I was just wondering when you were mentioning Ouija board, talking board, I didn't know if there was a difference between them.
Nope, same thing. It's like the difference between a Kleenex and a facial tissue.
Okay. You guys have anything else to add before we leave this evening?
Oh, I think we're good.
Yeah, we'll be at a Moss on March 2nd. We'll be there all day from 12 until when they close, and it's not going to cost anything for anyone to come see the museum. We'll be there all day. But if you want, at the end of the night when Moss closes, we'll be staying around to do a Ghost Hunting 101 and do a little ghost hunting there. That I believe they're charging $15 for.
I think so. And also, if there's anybody that has boards that they don't want anymore, you can always hit us up. We'll be willing to take them off your hands.
Yep, you could email us at emptycasketparanormal@gmail.com or send us a message on Facebook.
And one more time before you leave, what was the website again for anyone at home listening?
It's ectalkingboardmuseum.com.
Okay.
As an Empty Casket Talking Board Museum.
Very good. And I'm sure you guys are still doing the ghost investigating also, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that we're just kind of mixing them all together now.
Getting bigger and better.
Oh, absolutely.
Definitely.
Well, I'd like to thank you guys for joining me this evening.
Thanks for having us.
You're welcome. Have a great night.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Creepy Side of NEPA. If you have a paranormal story or experience you would like to share in an upcoming episode, or maybe you'll just like to give us a little feedback and let us know what you think of our show, we love hearing from our listeners. Email us at ghost@wnep.com. Until next time, enjoy the Creepy Side of NEPA.
This has been the Creepy Side of NEPA. If you have a spooky story that took place in northeastern or central Pennsylvania, send it to ghost@wnep.com for your chance to share it on an upcoming episode. We're dying to hear from you.